Hey guys, Art13131 here, and we are in week 9 now. So as you can see, we are headed toward the end of the term, and after this week we will only have 3 assignments in week 10, and week 11 is a make week, and there is a final due, which is matting and framing your own best work and sending an image of that matted and framed. We'll talk a little bit more about that next week. Matting and framing, I'll outline exactly what that is, but I want you to get a chance to use these assignments if you were to pick one of those for your final. So we'll talk about that in more detail next week, and of course it's due at the end of or during week 11 or by the end of it anyway. So you do have time, no problem with that. Let's talk about, we have a lot to talk about. I'm going to make everything in one video, assignment 16 and 17 and the homework. So, because I'm posting a little middle of the week here. We're going to be working with ink. So, typically that would be pen and ink, but where you're going to use like Sharpie pens or pens like that have a tip, not a felt tip, but an actual ink tip, but not a ballpoint, not like a ballpoint pen, but an ink tip that actually renders ink out the tip of the pen. So that's how you would accomplish these assignments the best way with the ink techniques and ink drawings. Let's show some examples of what I'm talking about. You can use whatever subject matter you want with ink techniques, as long as it's a rounded surface, because I want you to show your light source that way. So balls and eggs work the best, really, for this. They're simple, and it's a rounded surface as opposed to the square. If you use a square and a circle, that's okay. But I'm just asking you to do one or the other. But I'd rather you do the ball or egg because you have a gradual transition from light to dark areas with your marks. The cube, not as much because you have a sharp edge. It changes to that tone drastically, suddenly to the other tone in the backside where the light is not hitting. But the ball is a gradual transition because it is a rounded surface. So if you wanted to use like shells or fish or something, you would draw the same image 5 or so times and then use an outline of it. And then you would use the ink techniques to shade it. And there's several ink techniques. I'm asking you to try 5 of them. So let's say 5 or 6. And on the balls with ink techniques, this is sort of a good rendition, but not really. Let's see. Let's see if this one's a little better. A little better. Stippling is very popular, so that's where you do you make a lot of dots, and the less dots you make in an area show the light shining on that area. That's a lightly shaded area. The more marks, more dots you put on the ball or whatever you're using as your subject matter, that gets more intense and it gets darker. So that's how you create the light and dark shade. Less marks, lighter. More marks, darker. And it's a gradual transition with a ball because as if you were to shade this with graphite, you would be shading very lightly here or none maybe, and then extremely light into the darker area as you gradually go around the ball. Now we've discussed this all term. with all kind of subject matter. Faces, you know, anything I've asked you to draw had shading. A lot of the stuff had a rounded surface or a gradual rounded surface into some other shape. So you have various ways of making these marks. Typically, you sort of stay with the same marks if you're whatever you're drawing, but you can combine them. So this is a scribble mark. Sounds just like it is. It's scribbling, but you're doing less scribbling here, covering over less of the paper, and more concentrated scribbling back here, which makes it darker. Okay, now you can practice this on another paper and see what I'm talking about. Also, I'll provide a video on it that shows exactly what I'm talking about as well. Cross-hatching, that's where the lines kind of cross each other in various areas. Less marks here, more marks back here where the light is not hitting on the ball. Where you want the lighter area where the light is hitting would be the lesser marks, letting some of the white paper show through. That's how you get the shade of lighter and darker. This is just hatching without the cross hatching. Cross hatching, the lines cross each other. Hatching, they don't. Contour, now that goes with the direction of the ball. This isn't all that shaded very well here. This is kind of a version of scribbling, so we'll just stay with scribbling. So if you were to do something like these 5, let me see if I have a better example. You can go through these and look at them. I'm putting in pen and ink techniques, and I put up on a ball. It can be an egg too. Eggs work really well for this. You see very many, so they're calling this squiggly or scribble, that's the same thing. Contour hatching, so this is more of the contour, which goes in the shape of the ball. So it's basically lines going back and forth in a shading way with this is doesn't look like pen and ink though to me. It looks like, you know, they're using graphite to shade with marks. Oh, great. Very small. Can't see what the heck it is. All right, that's better. So you have your scribble, your stippling. I don't know what that, I forget what that was called. You can really make any mark you want if you're able to make light and dark areas, using less marks where the light is, more marks where the dark is, more concentrated marks into where it's almost black completely because you made so many marks. But you want to stay with those marks and not start scribbling in a different mark making way if you're using scribbling. Whatever mark you're making, stay with that mark through the whole thing. Don't start changing it up and changing all these directions with it unless you're using the cross hatching, you know, but stay with that idea of cross hatching. This way, that way, this way, you know. Don't change it up into now scribbling or one line going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. You want to stay with the same technique to show me that you understand that technique, this one, this one, this one. Pick 5 into an eggs or balls, or you, like I said, you could use, somebody did penguins. They drew 5 different penguins that were the same size and shape, and then they shaded them with the marks. That was a good idea. There's lots of ways to do the marks, but I'm trying to get you to do a rounded surface so you can show light and dark areas. This is all the, you know, many ways of making marks, but this isn't showing a light source. It's just showing you the marks. Okay? So there will be a video on this as well. And you can go through here and, you know, put stippling and find a bunch of ideas just on stippling, because the next assignment, number 17, is to draw an actual drawing using one of the techniques or several. You can use several or just one through the whole thing, that's fine. But use the techniques to show your light source, to show shape, to show light and dark areas, creating contrast. Don't just draw something with lines and expect it to be done. It won't have any shape that way. You're going to put in the shape with the marks you're making, showing the light and dark areas, okay? So if we put stippling, these are typically supposed to be drawn with stippling. Some are very intense, extremely intense. But as you can see, all those marks make your subject matter appear, depending on if you're using light and dark areas, where those marks are. The lightest areas have very few marks or none, and then it gets more concentrated, like in the brow here, and on the eyes, and the upper lip, and the nostrils, and all this stuff. You're creating this shape by putting those dots concentrated where the light is not hitting, but the darker shadow areas are, and then less marks where, or dots, where the light areas are. And that's how this whole image appears, through those. And you can look at all these if you want. There's many. And stippling takes some time, but it's really cool when you get it done. So you're going to do an ink drawing with number 17, okay? And so you're going to pick one of these techniques to do it, or several. Let's use the scribble and see how that looks. I kind of like the scribble idea. It's very, very cool. It can really render something quickly too. So the scribble marks, but get intense about it. Don't just do a little. I mean, really darken up the areas that are dark. Leave the other areas light. Go with the midtones, just some scribbles, and then intensify the scribbles as you need to. As you gradually go into all the areas that are midtones, you're going to gradually use more and more marks for that. Okay. Why it's not showing you a lot of that. It's kind of an idea of various marks that are kind of contour and going back and forth, maybe a little scribbly. Maybe these marks sort of go with the shape of what you're drawing, but they're intense in areas and then not so much intense in the other areas, showing the light and dark areas. So you can go with something like that too. Let's look up cross-hatching, and then I'll let this one go. Because, whoops, that's not right. This is kind of a version of cross-hatching. It's kind of contour in some places, and then it's just straight in others. You kind of make it up as you go along, trying to get the shape of things. But for the most part, it is a cross-hatch. Lines going over each other, back and forth, and very intense in the dark areas. Not so much in the light areas. Very little here, because that's where the eye is hitting. Light is hitting on that bottom of the eyelid there. So, let's see what this one looks like. Yeah, it's more of the cross-hatching idea. And you can do still life with that idea. This has got a lot of shape. Okay, and then we're talking about the ellipse on the bottom and top, so I'll talk about that. That's the homework. That's the oval shape you see at the top and the bottom of bottles and containers when you're looking sort of over them. If you're looking straight at them, you won't see the oval as much if your eye level is down here. But if you're kind of sitting at the table and this is on the table, you'll see the oval shape appear because these are round containers. I'll talk about that more in a minute. But okay, so you see the scribbling, the stippling, and now we got the cross-hatching idea, which can be very cool. A lot of shape in these pairs. Lots of light areas and dark areas and cast shadows. I want all that. Maybe not so much a background in some of these, but it can be done like this. Backgrounds help your subject matter kind of stand out at you and come toward you off the paper. It creates a really good three-dimensional appearance when you do that, because all this darker area here is darker than the containers and the bottles, and so it pushes it out at you. And I think you should try to do that, or just work on the pen and ink techniques in your subject matter. I mean, even a little background can help, right? This really helps these kind of stand out at you and kind of come off the page, along with the cast shadows. But this is all cross-hatching right here. Okay, so just to reiterate, we're going to do the ink techniques. I'll provide a video on that. Pick 5 of them. Do balls or eggs or something round-ish to show the light source on round surfaces, lights and darks. And then you're going to have your own pen and ink drawing. That's a separate drawing. Okay, so that's number 16 and 17. And then we're going to talk about still life drawing showing elisps. Basically, that's several bottles like this. You can do it in pen and ink if you want it. Or graphite. I'll just open it up to either. Alright. But, I have some images here to show you. This is in graphite. So, I mean, you can use the pen and ink if you want to. If you're getting good at it and you want to do it that way, that's fine. Basically, here's the idea of the elisps. Excuse me. So you're sitting where your eye level is over the container slightly. It's not completely over it, because if you were looking down in all these straight down into them, they'd be round. That would be a round opening. Because you're now sitting over here in front of it and kind of looking down at it, all these round openings become oval shape or elisp shape. They're not complete ovals, but I mean, some are more than others. They all change a little, depending on your eye level. And I'll provide a video on this too. So, as you can see, the round containers, whatever they are, the elisp goes down through the whole thing. Not that you're drawing all these lines in here around, unless they were transparent and they had liquid in them. Then you would draw that liquid there, here, wherever, however full it was. The idea here is to notice that the whole container is round, so there's an elisp wherever you wanted to put it, all the way down to the bottom. And the big mistake students make is they draw the bottom straight across on the table, which it isn't. Unless you're sitting straight across, then you're not drawing a lisp. You're not seeing elisps. That's not the project. That's not the assignment. You want to create an elisp by where your eye level is looking at these containers. If you were to pick up this container here and hold it at eye level in front of you, you wouldn't see the elisp because it'd be straight across. I mean, try it. Take a bottle or take a glass, put it on the table, look at it, and notice where the elisps are on the top and the bottom. Then pick it up and go to your eye level. They'll disappear because you won't be able to see them. It's all perspective. And where these subject matter and what you're drawing is in your eye level, or how you're looking at it, what angle you're looking at it. So that's why it's important when you're learning to draw to know about elisps, because it's going to show this perspective of where you are. And where the viewer's viewing this, whoever this is looking, they're seeing that, oh, I'm sort of standing a little above this and looking down at this container. So I can see inside slightly, but it's an oval shape. And on the bottom there's an oval shape too, see? It's not straight across there. It's an oval. I mean, if you were transparently looking at this, like if it was a clear bottle or vase, then you would see the oval shape on the bottom. If it's not, and it's not see-through, then you're going to be able to see only part of the lisp on the bottom. And on the side, if you were to draw lines on it like this. Now you pick up this container and go above your eye level, you'll see it reverse. You'll see the bottom having a lisp, and the top, maybe you don't see the whole lisp because you're not looking down inside. You'll just see the little curve on the edge. So it reverses when you lift things up above your eye level. And if you set up this as a still life, I don't want one container. This is just an example. I want something like this. 3 or 4 at least, okay? Containers that are rounded so that you have lisps on them. Noisy birds today. Noisy birds today. Shh. They won't shut up. Anyway, so you're looking inside, and then down at the bottom. If these are clear, you're going to see the whole ellipse down here. But the glass is going to be sort of distorted, right? It's going to be all distorted. So you do that with your graphite, or if you're using pen and ink, I'll show you that image again, but you can look it up. Pen and ink, still life, ellipses, any of this, you can put into Bing or Google and you'll find examples, any of it. But I want 2 or 3, or 3 or 4, not 2 or 3, 3 or 4 containers, and show the ellipses, and show all your shading, and backgrounds are great. Backgrounds really bring out something every time. Okay, so there's your ellipse. There'll be 2 videos on techniques, and then you're going to make your own ink drawing. So that's another, there's 3 assignments, and then the ellipse assignment. This is something you're setting up in front of you on a table or a surface, and you're looking at it with a single light source from the window or a lamp, as opposed to multiple light sources. Single light source, one side or the other. You're not straight on because you won't see any cast shadows. See the lights coming from this side, left side, it's cast shadows, light and dark sides to everything. That's what makes a strong drawing. If you don't have all that, it's flat looking and it's not as interesting. So you want all that. All right, so watch the video, and we'll get back with you next week. This is a lot, I know, and but go ahead and start in on it, and please finish up prior assignments and get those to me ASAP, because we are headed toward the end of the semester.